Welcome to Root Cause Medicine, presented by Spirit of Health, transforming lives through real health solutions.
Okay, so this is the Root Cause Medicine podcast with Mike and Vaughn, and today we're going to be talking about autoimmune disease.
Yeah, a topic I'm super passionate about. I've worked with thousands of people and, of course, many with autoimmune disease.
Yeah.
It's a big issue, big concern. People are struggling out there. You found some pretty amazing statistics about autoimmune. I'd love to hear those.
Yeah, I love statistics, I love research and published studies and stuff, so we're going to be talking a lot about that today. So autoimmune disease is now the third most common category of disease in the U.S. behind cancer and heart disease. It's just crazy, and I think not a lot of people realize that. This particular statistic I looked at said about 5 to 8% of the population, which is about 14 to 22 million people in the world. So it's in the U.S., just the U.S.
Yeah.
So that's a lot, but we also know most people aren't fully diagnosed with autoimmune. A lot of people know that it's probably well beyond that, at least double that, but pretty staggering that it's that big of a deal. We know a lot of people don't have answers for what this really is and what's going on. So maybe we just talk about what is autoimmune, what is an autoimmune disease. So kind of an official description that I found is autoimmune disease is the result of the adaptive immune system wherein it mistakenly targets and attacks healthy functioning parts of the body as if they were foreign invaders. So that's an official thing, and we do know it is a real thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is really happening, but maybe we talk a little bit more of what our perspective is, and what have you seen? How do you look at what autoimmune is?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I always look at everything from a design perspective. How did God design the human body? And so when we talk about the body being, confused and attacking itself, I'm struggling. I'm like, no, we're made in the image of God. He's a good designer. Would he create a body that destroys itself? Yeah. I just struggled with even believing that that's possible. And then of course, hearing what doctors say that, we don't know the cause and it's probably genetic and you're going to have it the rest of your life. And it's a scary thing. It's a real scary thing. And the fact that we see it massively increasing as far as the numbers of now millions of people having autoimmune disease. So yeah, it's just crazy. So I am always trying to look into how did God design the human body and what's causing the body to quote unquote attack itself, because we know that's not natural. Yeah. So what we've discovered and what we know that's pretty obvious is that the world is toxic. It's full of poisons, man-made chemicals of which there's tens of thousands of, and just pollution of our food supply and our environment. So I really believe that there's things that are man-made that are getting into this human body that God designed and causing dysfunction, causing confusion. So is God's design really the problem? Or is it something else? Is it some man-made problem?
Something man-made that's creating a weird trigger. So, and I love to tell people, you're not broken. Your body is not beyond fixing. There's a reason why this is happening, and we can figure it out. And it's not a bad design. It's just there's a lot of obstructions that could be causing some weird things going on. We know that it's, autoimmune is big business, and what people are told, you just have to be on this medication for the rest of your life. You're going to have it forever. And basically we have no idea why it's happening. That's what people are told. And what did you find about how much?
Oh my gosh, yes. I found a statistic that said autoimmune disease is $100 billion, that's with a B, $100 billion industry. So, is autoimmune real? Yeah, people are struggling. But unfortunately, we know we have a medical system that tries to capitalize and turn everything into a business. It's big business. Yeah. So of course they're going to prescribe drugs for autoimmune because there's a lot of profit to be made off of those pharmaceutical drugs. So our approach, our philosophy, it's so completely different. And one thing I always love to tell the patients I'm working with is I really feel like the medical system, their goal is to have lifelong patients, right? Where I'm the opposite. I want to work with somebody 6 to 10 months, get them well, and then say, go tell all your friends, have them come see us.
Yeah, hopefully you never have to see us again.
Yeah, I don't need to see you the rest of my life, So there are answers. And that's what people need to know. And they need to have hope and know that God did not design the body to destroy itself. So we can see autoimmune go away. Of course we can. It's the opposite of what the doctors say. There's nothing you can do about it. Yeah, you can, because there's a reason. There's a root cause. We're all about root cause, right? So let's discover the root cause, and then you don't have to live with that diagnosis anymore because you don't have autoimmune anymore. So
Amen.
what are some of these root causes? Why do people have autoimmune disease?
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to definitely break some of that down. I love what you said about hope, and I think that's one of the biggest things we give people, because we know some of these people that come into our office and how they are, what they've been told from the medical industry, and just this fear thing and this, this heaviness, and we have the ability. So I think that's a great starting place for a lot of people. There is, I love telling people straight to their face with genuineness, like there is hope for answers.
Right.
There's reasons why this is happening, and yes, we can figure that out and help reverse you. Just like this happened, we can reverse and your body can heal itself. We just have to figure out the right things that are going on with your specific situation. So,
yeah, absolutely.
And maybe it's good to say just with autoimmune, 70 to 75% of the immune system stems from our gut and our gut microbiome and all that. So we know that everybody we see with autoimmune, that's a big area we're looking into and looking at. And then there's all sorts of other
100%.
toxins and infectious organisms and stuff. So I was excited to talk about this and break down some of these stats and what we've seen. I think it's good to break down published studies and things that have been researched and pair that along with our personal experience. You seeing over 10,000 people doing this for a while, and me seeing quite a few people. So, but so that people don't know it's just hocus pocus or we don't know what we're talking about. It's like, no, we've seen and done this tons of times, and it's been proven in the literature.
Absolutely.
And so I love to pair that together so that people really know, we're not just making this stuff up.
Yeah, and you can prove it. You can prove it in labs. Somebody can have autoimmune thyroid, shows in their labs. You do blood work 6 months later, they don't have autoimmune thyroid. Well, the doctor told me I was going to have it my whole life. The doctor told me it was genetic. The doctor told me I had to be on these meds my whole life. We know that's not true.
Yeah.
We know there's answers. We know people can heal. And like you said, I really believe very strongly that the gut is such a main issue. Like I remember working with this chiropractor in the Kansas City area, and he happened to work with a lot of women with autoimmune thyroid. And it just stuck with me. He's like, you cannot have autoimmune thyroid without having a gut problem. And that just really resonated with me. And I've seen that. I've seen that in our practice, that when you work on people's gut health, autoimmune goes away. So, what does that tell you, right?
Right. Yeah, so definitely gut things is a big part of it. We know toxicities is a big category. A lot of current research is showing the main causes of cancer and autoimmune and chronic issues, relates to toxicity, but then also infectious organisms. And so we like to look at the whole picture, and we talk about test, don't guess. And we do a variety of tests to find these answers and then come up with a customized solution for somebody. It's not a one-size-fits-all thing, and I think that's what also separates us from a lot of places. We're able to customize that because you can take 5 different people with the same autoimmune condition. There might be different things going on, and that's what's not understood medically, and we're addressing each individual person and what's going on with them.
Yeah, and every natural doctor out there, wellness center, they do things differently, and I really am thankful that the Lord led me to lab testing. I mean, lab testing is so powerful because people come in, right? What's the typical story? Like, I don't want to exaggerate, but like, there's this reality that people come in and they're like, "You're my last hope, doc. I've seen 5 doctors, 8 doctors. I've spent $20,000, $50,000. I mean, I've had multiple people tell me they spent well over $100,000. And not only are they not well, they don't even know what's wrong with them.
Yeah, or why it's happening.
That's crazy. Yeah. And so that we have the ability through lab testing to actually get to the root cause of why people aren't well. Because there's a reason. Again, I'm repeating myself, but God's a good God. He's a good designer of the human body. There's interference, there's toxins, there's poisons, and that's causing this quote-unquote autoimmune response, which is a real thing. So maybe, do you want to dive in a little bit more of like what you actually see is happening in the body at the tissue level, at the cellular level, when somebody has an autoimmune disease?
Yeah, I mean, our immune system is is amazing. It's fascinating, and I think we still don't even have a clue, but all the different aspects of the immune system, and I think that people know white blood cells, these leukocytes, there are our immune system, but then we have different types. We have neutrophils, monocytes, lymphocytes, eosinophils, basophils, lots of these different types of things, and they're designed to help protect us from foreign invaders, from toxins, identify things, tag things. They're kind of like our military, and there's different branches of the military. I like to tell it that way. We have natural killer cells that are more like the Navy SEALs, the specialists, and we have, our frontline Army and Navy and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
And it works amazingly. But yeah, when you add in a lot of these toxins and these foreign things that are not ever supposed to be, God never designed to be in our body.
Right.
And then you add on these infectious organisms, and we're going to talk about molecular mimicry and the things that they can do. They can disguise themselves and put certain proteins on to make them look like certain tissue. The body is trying to do everything it can to heal, right? I love you. You've always said that, and it's so cool. The body's always trying to heal, but at some point when it gets overwhelmed, we reach this tipping point, and the body can get confused and start thinking that, it's overwhelmed with all this stuff, and it's trying to tag it, and it, again, because of molecular mimicry, other things, it's starting to think that the healthy tissue is the foreign invader.
Right.
And, that's not a cool situation, but
no.
We know that if we clean up the body, we find those answers, the body can stop doing that, come back into balance. And a lot of times with autoimmune too, it's that a lot of times there's one part of the immune system that's overactive, and then maybe another part that's actually suppressed. And so it's not just about increasing or decreasing immune function, but balancing it back out, modulating it by dealing with these root cause things. So it's pretty amazing what the body can do when we give it the opportunity to, we give it the right things, but then also help remove the obstructions out of the way.
Totally. And you said something that just stuck out to me, where you said, things that God never designed to be in the human body. So, we're the holy temple of God. We're created in God's image, and we're created to be clean, like a river flowing through our body, like literally, like a cardiovascular system, a lymphatic system. It's just like a river flowing through our body that should be clean. And if it's unclean and it gets toxic, then the body gets confused. Okay? And I probably shouldn't even say it that way. I don't think the body's confused. I think God knows what he's doing. The body's doing what it's supposed to be doing. Like I've really stood by that, and looking at the body the way God created it, that like the body's always doing what it's supposed to be doing. It's always trying to achieve health and optimal wellness. Yeah. We know it's regenerating itself, it's healing itself. So again, what's happening with autoimmune? And you really touched on something critical, like there's these foreign toxins in the body, and the molecular mimicry. Like it's almost, I don't know what the right word is, it's almost kind of weird to think about what's happening with this molecular mimicry, that there's actually these organisms like bacteria, viruses, Lyme disease, mold, that are getting into the tissues, that are getting into the cells, and almost like trying to become one, even though they're toxic. Like they're trying to become one and disguise themselves so that they can survive.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. And like you said, like we have this military of white blood cells inside of our body that's trying to fight against this, and discovered that guy, that's a bad guy, like let's attack him. But that thing's attached ourselves to our healthy cells. So now our immune system is trying to kill the invader, but our healthy cells are not in the way, but they're attached to it. And so it seems like the body's attacking itself. But again, the body's just doing what God designed it to do, and it's trying to remove foreign invaders.
Yeah. Innocent bystanders getting in the way sometimes.
Right.
And so let's talk about some of these specific root causes a little bit more in depth. And I'll share a few statistics and published studies and things that I've seen in the literature that back up a lot of what we've known and done for a while. But so starting with mold toxicity, really the mycotoxins. So there's kind of two parts of that. There's mold, and we know mold can get in somebody's body and colonize the body. And then there's the mycotoxins that mold produces as a byproduct. And with the way homes are designed and a lot of water damage, people are getting crazy amounts of these mycotoxins because it's in an enclosed area. Right. They may not even know about it. and could be breathing in and getting high levels of these toxins in their system. So yeah, I've been big on, after years of understanding mold, and we know how big of a deal it is, seeing it with the majority of people. But related to autoimmune, so one study showed 36.6% of people chronically exposed to toxic mold experience different kinds of autoimmune conditions. Wow. So it's just crazy. So we know that that's a big trigger.
Okay. So you're saying that people have mold exposure or toxicity, but it can manifest itself in different ways.
Yeah.
Right? Like
different types of autoimmune.
Some person might have autoimmune thyroid, but somebody else might have, lupus or whatever. So it's the same toxicity manifesting in different ways, right?
Yeah, definitely. Depends on each person's body, their drainage pathways, the health of other organs and systems, also genetics. I mean, we like talking about genetics because we know it's not, your genetics don't tell the end of the story,
right.
But we talk about epigenetics, how we can have different genetics, different genes, and we all do, some good, some bad. But it's really the environment around those cells, the DNA, that can turn on or turn off certain gene expression. So yeah, some people are genetically prone, but yeah, once they have a toxic exposure, then some of those genes get turned on and can create different kinds of reactions. Yeah, and another study I saw said a 400% increase in autoimmune disease in occupants of water-damaged buildings with mold. So it's significant. We've seen that with a lot of people. I know we've both worked with a lot of people with mold toxicity, and now we check for it in pretty much all of our clients because it's such a big, it can be such a big deal.
Totally.
These mycotoxins are extremely harmful to the immune system. So we're talking about immune system, autoimmune.
Right.
So it's been proven these mycotoxins are immunotoxic, toxic to the immune system, damage those immune cells. Yeah. They're immune suppressants. They're so immune suppressing, and I don't think people know this, that in the medical industry, they've actually used these as medications, as drugs. For people with like organ transplant, heart transplants, you can't have your body turning on yourself and attacking it. Right. So they'll give people these mycotoxins in concentrated doses or creating a medication out of it because they're so immune suppressant.
That's mind-blowing.
But again, people are breathing these in and not even know it. They inhibit proliferation of B and T cell lymphocytes and natural killer cells. So again, part of our military in our body is getting destroyed by these mycotoxins, and they increase pro-inflammatory cytokines. So this is all stuff I found in the literature, and again, stuff we see all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned mold. You think there's other causes of autoimmune besides mold?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, mold's a big one. I always like to talk about that one. And then environmental toxins / chemicals or toxicants is a big category.
Yeah.
We know some of the research says we're exposed to 86,000 plus chemicals every single day. Yeah. And most of these have not been properly evaluated by the governing bodies, or we could go down a whole road with this thing, but some of those things have actually been paid off to do their own research. The people that are creating the chemicals paid to do their own research. And what do you think they're going to say? And there's people that have now come out about that. Hey, I can't lose my job. I'm just doing it. I'm changing the research to say what we want it to say.
Right.
But most of it hasn't been properly, researched and seen what the effect on people. Or some people they know and it's just being covered up. But 86,000 plus chemicals, and that's just increasing every year. Yeah. That spike. I know we've both seen different kind of charts, but in the last 20, 30 years, the increase of those chemicals just skyrocketing. Right. And again, these are things that we're not meant to be exposed to. They're not meant to be in the body. So they're a huge thing. We know that, some of these environmental toxins are like pesticides, herbicides, like glyphosate. It's now the most sprayed herbicide in the world. Yeah, it's what's in Roundup. It's what's sprayed in all of the genetically modified foods. So if anybody goes to any fast food or goes out to eat, unless it's specifically a very, very intentional, clean restaurant, they're going to get some glyphosate.
It's pretty rare, yep.
There's also things like phthalates and plastics and BPA, microplastics, parabens, and just the list goes on and on and on, different categories. So yeah, we test for these things. We can test for thousands of these environmental toxins and see if they're in somebody's system. But yeah, the latest research and the literature points to those specifically suppressing immune function, damaging our leukocytes, our white blood cells, our immune system. Right. They can damage the gut lining, causing leaky gut. And so, yeah, we can talk about that a little bit more, but how it harms and disrupts the microbiome.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I love what we do, because, we're able to do the lab testing, find out what the toxins are, again, they're going to doctors and they're put on the immunosuppressant drugs, and like that's the life that those doctors want them to live.
Yeah.
And we're like, no, like there's toxicity, there's poison, there's mold, there's glyphosate, there's these things. So what's so awesome, like just seeing this countless times in my office, just doing a one-on-one consultation, is the hope you instill in people. That, yeah, actually there is an answer. Like there is a root cause. We can discover what it is. So giving people hope and giving people answers and solutions, like it's life-changing, and it's so rare because of the way our medical system's set up right now. So what I have seen, and I kind of just want to mention this because this is kind of a, I don't know, kind of like an aha moment for me, because I've seen 10,000 people and seen so many cases of chronic illness, is, man, I mean, I know there's all kinds of toxins and poisons in our world, but I'll tell you what I see the majority of the time. And what I believe is the biggest reason why the majority of people are struggling with autoimmune disease and other chronic illness, it's infectious disease. Like our bodies are riddled with infectious disease, and people don't know it. I call it like a low-grade systemic infection, but people have chronic fatigue and all these issues, and they're not necessarily thinking infection, because when you think infection, what do you think? Oh, I don't feel well, or I got food poisoning.
Yeah, strep or...
Yeah, I go to the doctor and I'm told I have strep or mono or whatever, and I take an antibiotic, right? Like that's, in an acute situation, you go to the doctor and take an antibiotic. Well, when else are people thinking about that they possibly might have an infectious disease? And that might be why they're tired, or they have all these symptoms of things that they're struggling with. So to be able to lab test and discover the bacteria that's doing the molecular mimicry that's causing encephalitis or inflammation in the brain, and like learning these things that are hurting children as well, because I've worked with a lot of children as well. But yeah, these viruses, the mold, the Lyme disease, like these infectious organisms are at the root cause of so many people's chronic health issues. And again, leading to this molecular mimicry. So again, knowing that, like actually getting that information, it's life-changing for people because they've had no answer, no hope for 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years. I mean, how many times have you seen that in office? It's over and over and over
Right,
again.
because the general consensus from the medical is, we don't know why this is happening, but we're just going to put you on a medication to keep it under control, if it even is doing that, but and just manage it for the rest of your life. Yeah, and I mean, I was thinking about a lady that, I know you were talking about people coming to you that have seen tons of doctors. I had one lady, I think she said I was the 109th doctor she saw.
What?
And she had never been told certain things. I was the first one to even bring up mold toxicity.
Wow.
Also, she had a lot of dental stuff going on. We know that can cause a lot of infection in the body. And I was the first person that ever even mentioned some of these things. And she had never been told that, never been tested. And so, yeah, we love doing these tests and finding somebody's specific root issues. And you're totally right. The chronic infections, I think people hear infection and it's this just, oh, well, I don't have strep throat, or I don't have a, but it's like a chronic infection that's low grade or moderate or severe, that's been going on for a long time, that's causing these issues. So yeah, I mean, in the literature I found, there was one talking about there's been long-standing association between infectious organisms and human autoimmunity, that infectious organisms can create molecular mimicry, leading to these autoimmune reactions, these so-called autoimmune, and tons of research, and we don't have time to go into all of it, but related to certain bacteria, viruses, yeast, fungal. A couple that I just wrote down specifically: cytomegalovirus. This is one that we test for. And it's a really common virus. They say 70 to 100% of people in the world get exposed to cytomegalovirus, but again, a normal healthy immune system, the body's dealing with it well, can deal with that very well. But for a lot of people that they are already having some immune dysregulation, or they have toxins, and we know that toxicity goes along with infectious organisms because it can create pleomorphism, where an organism that is normally not majorly problematic in the presence of these toxins can actually change its form and become more pathogenic.
Wow.
But some specific studies related to cytomegalovirus and the development of systemic lupus that can be triggered, It's been detected in patients with rheumatoid arthritis, ulcerative colitis, Crohn's, and so on and so forth. Also, Epstein-Barr, another one that we test for a lot, has some specific correlation with lupus, other autoimmune diseases. Bacteria. So I know you mentioned Lyme and like staph. Staph is a common one that can affect, especially in kids, leading to, PANS type reactions where it can molecular mimic and cause things to attack the brain.
Yeah.
But yeah, some of these bacteria can be really nasty. The Lyme bacteria, Borrelia and Bartonella, Mycoplasma, these can all and have research tied to them to these autoimmune conditions. And we see that quite a bit.
Yeah. And I just think back on the people I've seen over the years, but man, one that sticks out to me is just this young woman who was in her early 30s and she had 3 kids, and it's the same story. Seen so many doctors. I mean, she was so sick that her mom had to come. She luckily lived nearby, but her mom had to come help her because she couldn't raise her kids by herself.
Yeah.
And of course, husband's at work. She's 3 little kids, and she's basically non-functional, and no answers.
Yeah.
So if you don't have any answers, then you don't necessarily have any hope. And you keep going to different doctors and not finding any hope or answers. And so, yeah, we had a conversation, and she, of course, done other lab testing, but more of the traditional, medical stuff. And I was the first person that even mentioned mold as a possibility. And I think a lot of times people aren't thinking about these things.
Yeah.
They're not thinking they live in a moldy house, or a lot of times with Lyme disease, well, I never got bit by a tick and got a bullseye rash. So they're not even thinking about Lyme, but there's so many other ways people can pick up Lyme and be exposed to these things.
Yeah.
So we did the lab testing, and man, I mean, it was actually one of the worst cases I'd ever seen. But she had 9 different mold toxins above the toxic level, and ochratoxin A was 42 times the toxic level.
Wow.
She had multiple black molds. They ended up moving out of that house, but she finally got an answer.
Yeah.
And it's been a couple years. I still stay in contact with her. We talk a little bit once in a while, but life's totally changed. Got her life back, can raise her kids. She's helping other people. It's one of those amazing God stories, because I want to give all the credit and the glory to God. I may or may not be a part of different people's journey, but very thankful who the Lord puts in my path. But praise God, we discovered she had mold. And to me, that's a miracle. As Christians, a lot of times we're thinking okay, we know what the Bible says, lay hands, and you should be healed, right? And I love that. I love the fact that God can heal anytime, anywhere. But to me, when a mom who's chronically ill for years and can't raise her kids gets to the root cause and finds out she has mold toxicity, and even though it might have taken a year or 2 years for her to get well, that's an absolute miracle.
Yeah, it is. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you make me think of with mold too. Again, I'm big on mold because I've seen it quite a bit, and we know how damaging it is. But you talking about God's design and all that, a lot of people don't even realize that it's mold is talked about in the Bible. What is it, in Leviticus, I think? And it's very intense about it. And again, we have to understand these things that can harm our body. And we're just not taught those. But yeah, very intense procedures laid out in the Bible, in Leviticus, about if you find mold in this thing and, the house, and you got to shut it up and get out of it for a while. And if you go and check it, and eventually you just burn the house down, I think was but they have a whole kind of protocol for the house situation. People don't realize how big of a deal that mold can be. And we knew it thousands of years ago, way back when the Bible was written, wisdom passed down. So we're just not taught about that. But yeah, these infectious organisms can be huge. And then, also talking about parasites in that same category. We know parasites can cause a lot of things. I mean, there's been whole books written on the cause for all disease and cancers and stuff, because parasites seem to be a picture of that, because we know parasites can, they can harbor and carry, transmit different infectious organisms inside them and bring them in somebody's body. They can also harbor, like sponges, different toxins and stuff like that. And they can affect our immune system. There's a lot of research in the literature showing how they affect the Th1, Th2 balance of our immune system. And not to go too in depth in that, but flipping it and causing the body to do weird things. They specifically can trigger autoimmune and again, as well as harbor metals and mold and toxins and stuff like that. So we've seen that in a majority of our cases.
Man, parasites are a thing, aren't they?
They are.
Like, we're talking about autoimmune, but it's hard to talk about chronic illness without talking about parasites. I mean, it is so, sometimes I just kind of laugh with God and be like, wow, Lord, you gave me this calling, and I'm in this industry where I talk about poop and parasites and infection like all day long, right? But it's so real because people get freaked out by parasites, but it's like, to me, they're a lot freakier inside your body than in the toilet.
Yeah.
Like, let's get rid of them. They're not, clearly not designed to be in the Bible or in the body, in the human body. And so yeah, parasites are real, man. And I have a folder, thousands of pictures of crazy things that have come out of people's bodies. But like I mentioned earlier, like unclean.
Yeah.
2 Corinthians 7:1 says, then cleanse yourself of all filthiness of flesh and spirit.
Yeah.
So actually, like cleansing our flesh, like not giving our lives over to the flesh, but living in the spirit, and fasting and lifestyle and diet changes, and actually like honoring our holy temples will help get these toxins and poisons out of the body, because these parasites and things aren't supposed to be, we're not supposed to be the host.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
We need to cleanse those things out because they're triggering these types of diseases. And most doctors in the medical industry isn't talking about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and I think people don't think about parasites here in the U.S. like, oh, that's just a third world country thing, but they know their dogs can get parasites, and we need to deworm the dog, and that could be serious, but they don't think about it for themselves. And I like to tell a lot of my clients too, it's like God designed our bodies really amazing. We have defenses, we have pathways, but most people's defenses are getting down, and then again, we're harboring all these toxins and that, and then these types of infectious organisms thrive in a toxic environment, and they can get in, and our defenses can't maybe fully take care of them, and now they're taking up root in a toxic environment. But if the body is clean and our defenses are up, we can be exposed to quite a bit, and our body take care of it. It's the way God designed it. But yeah, we know parasites are a big part of things. So yeah, I wanted to talk about leaky gut a little bit more, break that down a little bit more, because we know that a lot of these things do stem from the gut. And I found some cool things in the literature. One study was talking, kind of combining this gut and infection and toxins kind of thing. But one study was saying toxins can specifically bind to immune receptors, promoting anti-nuclear autoimmunity, depleting antioxidant reserves, promoting immune barrier dysregulation, and basically inducing lymphocyte dysregulation, directly leading to autoimmune responses. So that's, they found direct ties to, again, these toxins creating that disruption in the gut microbiome, and all that. And so, it's cool, some of the testing we do with the gut testing, very in-depth, a lot of information.
Yes.
We can test leaky gut specifically. And although we know, like, leaky gut, I would say leaky gut necessarily is a true root cause, but it's a byproduct, and it's a part of a lot of people's situation. But it's a lot of these toxins and not the proper gut microbiome and infectious organisms that then create the leaky gut.
Right.
But how huge it is for people when we clean up that environment, heal the leaky gut, that being a big factor in their journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And you get to see people's pain and inflammation go away, or their food sensitivities disappear. And it's so crucial to their gut health. And so people might be wondering, like, how, what's really happening. And so from my understanding of it, when you have a quote unquote leaky gut, and first of all, how does that happen? Like, I really believe, like, I know glyphosate is definitely linked to that, of damaging and destroying the tissues. But I feel like it's mostly usually these infectious organisms.
Yeah.
Like, kind of drilling holes and damaging our intestinal wall.
Yeah, or their toxic byproduct waste that they're releasing, and or the mold mycotoxins going through the system, and so yeah, a combination of those infections and toxins. Yeah, and we know, like, so one of the main markers really the main marker we look at for leaky gut on the gut testing is the zonulin. And so, some of the literature I saw was talking about how when the zonulin pathway is dysregulated, research now shows autoimmune disorders are much more likely to happen. And for those people that don't know, zonulin is the only physiologic modulator of intracellular tight junctions, these junctions that are supposed to be tight. And that's what leaky gut is we're supposed to have these tight junctions. Certain things are not supposed to get through and into the bloodstream. And then you've got these foreign proteins or things in the bloodstream that then can cause these other issues. But and another study showed a direct link to environmental toxins causing these epigenetic changes that led to zonulin dysregulation. So, this study is now showing that autoimmune responses can be stopped, reversed, or improved by reestablishing that intestinal barrier function. And this has really been that was a breakthrough study when that came out several years ago, because nobody had ever put that together. But again, I think we've known in the natural health world that for a while, those connections, but now there's cool studies in the literature that are proving that and showing that in real time and with clients.
So does diet matter? Does what we eat matter? Is this linked to all this? Of course it is. It's not everything. But there's a reason people are going gluten-free or not eating dairy or avoiding certain allergenic foods. And what are these allergenic foods? For the most part, they're proteins, right? Because if you have a leaky gut, these foreign proteins are leaking through and causing autoimmune responses because it's foreign to the human body. At least it's foreign to being in that location. It's not supposed to be in our other tissues, in our lymphatic system, in our blood. And so it's causing confusion in the body. So we got to heal that gut lining, and that's crucial. And so the gut-associated lymphatic tissue, they say, I think you might have mentioned it, 70% of our immune system is in that gut. And so how crucial is it what we eat, that we're eliminating, we're having regular bowel movements, we're doing colon cleanses, or, I've seen so many people get healthier just doing a short 10-day colon cleanse. Because it's cleaning up some of the stuff. So there's so many just different solutions and different things you can do. But you mentioned the gut zoomer, man, I love that test. It's so good at giving us the information we need to know what's going on in that person's gut, because it's so often the root cause of autoimmune and other chronic health issues.
And I think foundationally for a lot of people, the diet conversation is a big one, and there's lots of different opinions and all that. But I do like to explain for some people that, based on the status of where your body's at right now, these foods might not, they might be contributing to the problem, but it's not always the food's problem. There are some whole foods that people can have in moderation if their body's in a good place, but a lot of them that need to be cut out if they have leaky gut, if they have digestive issues, because they might not be digesting them well enough, or again, those proteins are getting into the bloodstream and getting other places. So taking some of that burden off of the body by cutting out some of these pro-inflammatory foods or these high allergen foods, gluten, dairy, peanuts, so on and so forth. Different grains can be problematic. So and it is a lot of those proteins that are in the grains, like gluten, like other things that are very similar, that can be leading to this. But it's not always just that's fault, but again, that's part of the thing. And with our whole thing with root cause, it's okay, the deepest root cause is the toxins and in the infectious organisms. But then, a part of it is this leaky gut, and foods could be leading to that. And we need to look at the whole picture and help somebody walk through that process.
Absolutely. And, cleaning it up. Really, for most people, how they get well is finding out what are the foreign toxins and poisons and how do we get them out. And if we can help people with that, people are going to get well. And it sounds fairly simple. Of course, it can be pretty complicated. It sounds fairly simple, but that's really what people need to get well. And there's all kinds of things we can do with that. I was just going to mention, just because I love it, I was going to share a personal story, but I really love enzyme therapy. We're pretty big into enzymes. And there's lots of different treatment protocols out there, but I love enzyme therapy. Well, I broke out in hives one time after a meal, and I had no idea what it was. I've never had a food reaction or broke out in hives or anything like that before. I didn't know what it was. So the next time it happened, I paid attention to what I ate, and it was red meat. I ate red meat, and I literally had hives all over my entire body, and it was miserable. And so after I discovered that, I knew about enzymes, because enzymes are like Pac-Man. They go through and gobble up foreign proteins and things that shouldn't be in the body. I just started high dosing enzymes. It went away. I've never had a problem since. I can eat red meat now, no problem. So anyway, it just goes to show you that, yeah, something can happen in the body, but finding out what it is and somehow cleansing or removing the offending agent, right, from the body, causing the response, and then that issue clears.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's a cool story. Yeah, those enzymes are powerful to break down different accumulations and things. And so, yeah, definitely seen some cool stuff. And it's in some of our gut products and stuff like that. So then maybe we want to talk about one of the last big categories that we see with autoimmune as far as root causes, and that's the heavy metals. The heavy metals, and some of those are radioactive elements in there too. So a big thing. But yeah, what have you seen with that? And
yeah, seen mercury, of course, a lot. It's the one people think of the most. They think of mercury and lead and some of the big ones. But I've actually been shocked at the amount of uranium and cesium and some of these radioactive elements that have showed up. And people are shocked too. They're like, how can I get that? And so it can be in the water supply. It's related to like nuclear activity, right? And there's a lot of nuclear activity happening, unfortunately, around our country, and that stuff is super toxic.
Yeah.
And
I saw some specific studies about people living around certain areas near nuclear power plants, or one that got shut down, and it was, a lot of these they're not properly contained and all that, and things are leaking into the water supply and all that, and that having a major increase in autoimmune specifically when I was looking at some research related to that. Yeah, those especially the radioactive elements, because they're constantly emitting these particles that are damaging tissue and damaging our immune system, and yeah, so I've seen a lot of cesium, uranium, and other metals like cadmium and aluminum. And aluminum's so common, it's maybe not as toxic as some of the others, but still at high accumulations can be really problematic.
Absolutely.
And I saw some specific studies done how these heavy metals can affect proper modulation of the immune homeostasis and can lead to the production of inflammatory cytokines. Another one specifically said metals can lead to inappropriate activation of immune cells, resulting in chronic inflammation and autoimmune disease. So inappropriate, again, causing a overstimulation or a suppression. Again, they're not functioning the way they're supposed to. We know, I've seen in the literature some metals can alter that Th1, Th2 reactivity, which can also constitute a trigger for the incidence of autoimmune. So lots of research that's been done. I just pulled a few things that I saw, but yeah, I know we see it all the time.
Yeah.
And it's great to test that. Not everybody has, a toxic heavy metal situation, but it's good to test it because it can be such a big category of a root cause that we want to know if it's there or rule it out.
Yeah. And that's important to understand, that the more information we have as practitioners, the more we can help somebody be more specific in a treatment protocol. Because if somebody has mercury and we don't know it, and that goes untreated, again, that can be causing problems. And not just that they're toxic, but they actually attract, oftentimes, we know bacteria and fungus and different infectious organisms will stay in a body because they're actually trying to clean up their cleanup crew. They're actually trying to clean up this poison that's in the body. So again, God's a good designer of the body, and what's happening in the body is what's supposed to be happening based off of what's going on in the body, which is often, unfortunately, a lot of toxins and poisons, and the body's trying to figure out, how do I handle this? How do I clear this? How do I heal this? And so what I love is partnering with God. And again, God can do miracles, but we can partner with God. We can discover the root cause. We can get educated. We can cleanse. We can use God's remedies like sunshine and water and a good diet and herbs and all the powerful, amazing things God gave us to heal our bodies. And we can partner with Him in getting people well. And I love it. That's why I love what we do. We're so passionate about what we do.
Yeah, and heavy metals to me is definitely a true root cause. So I like the way you were talking about that a little bit, because we've found that, a lot of people with chronic candida, overgrowth or fungal or these different things in their gut, and they'll do a strict diet, a candida diet and a candida cleanse, and maybe it gets a little bit better, and then it comes right back. It's like, what is going on? I've done so many candida cleanses and diets, and it just keeps coming back. It's like, well, candida is not really a true root cause, because there's usually a reason candida or these fungal things are thriving. They're trying to help break down some toxicity, and a big one can be heavy metals, these radioactive elements. So it's like we have to identify and clear the heavy metals, and then either the candida or fungal stuff goes away on its own, or then we can treat it and eliminate it, and it's gone for good.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, heavy metals can be a big deal, and why we tell people to, eat clean and purify their water. There's a lot of weird things that get in the water, and radioactive elements and some of these metals are especially very hard to get out. And so we know that, there's a lot of filters and stuff out there that will claim they'll do certain things, but when it's actually been tested, radioactive elements and some of those metals are not getting pulled out for the most part, and why we recommend distilled water and stuff like that, because then we know for sure we're getting that bad stuff out of the water. And people even on well water, sometimes they're getting arsenic and different things, and again, these radioactive elements now seeping into our water supply. So it's a huge thing that I know we've seen for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So we just feel people, they need to hear this information. Right? They're not necessarily getting it out there, wherever their circle of, where they get their information comes from. Like often, there's a lot of, censorship or kind of keeping the truth hidden, especially when it comes to chronic health issues, especially when it comes to autoimmune. There's certain things that you hear repeated patient after patient after patient because of what the doctor is saying to them. And we need to educate people that there's answers, there's solutions, there's a root cause. God didn't poorly design the human body. There's interference. Let's discover it, let's get it out, and then actually see the miracle of God's creation in play as he heals you.
Yeah.
It's just amazing to see that transformation.
Yeah, and it's amazing to see, and our testimonies, I know it touches our heart every day when we see those. I mean, we've both worked with tons of people with, Hashimoto's, autoimmune thyroid, and seeing that go away. Fibromyalgia, rheumatoid arthritis, MS. We have one of our staff members that, came to you with MS. Half of her body wasn't working, and now she's fully functional. And she got so passionate about finding these root causes and getting her own healing. And she was told all the fear and that stuff, and you're going to have this for the rest of your life, and blah, 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 blah. And she chose to, follow, to follow true information, and did a lot of what you told her to, and what we teach on, and now she teaches other people this.
That's right.
And so it's amazing.
Doing it.
So we're going to continue to get this information out, talking about different things, but definitely if you're listening to this and you have friends or family member that need to hear this, pass this information along.
Absolutely.
Make sure to subscribe. Share this with your friends and family. We're going to keep talking about these root cause things. Let us know if there's anything specific you want us to talk about, but we're going to continue the journey of talking about this and sharing the information as much as we can, and letting people know there is hope for answers and healing, and it's what we do all the time.
Amen. And this is life-saving information. I mean, it truly is, in a world of so much confusion and deception. And I think I would end with this, that our desire is to see people healed and well, and actually give God the glory, because he is the creator of the human body. Therefore, he's the only one that can heal the body. Like, the root word doctor in Greek means teacher. We're supposed to teach, we're supposed to educate, guide people, be a part of somebody's journey, but I don't ever want to claim to be the healer, because God's the healer. He made the human body, so we give all the glory to God. And unfortunately, in our world today, so many people are giving, man the credit for technology and advances in medicine and all of those things. But I really, my heart is that people see God as the healer, and God gets the glory.
Yeah, amen.